Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. Welcome back. We're on chapter 11 of Time Not Here by me, David Caldecott. By leaving so suddenly and not coming back, he had shown Laith that even after the whole evening of pleasantries and supposed honesty, there was no friendship left to flog for money or entertainment. The game was up. Either he was gone and Daniel would probably never hear from him again, or he was still there and the next few days and weeks would be hell. It was 2 a.m. by the time that Daniel reached Sam's house. He had run as fast as he could across the city, through the university campus and up through Badger Hill. As he looked back, he could see the city castle perched on its mound, basking in the light of the full-lit moon and swimming in the streetlights of the city surrounding it. His battery was dead, so he hoped that Sam was home. There was no way in hell he was going back to that house alone. Either the psycho will be gone, or he won't, but at least he'd have a witness with him if anything did seriously happen. He approached the doorbell of Sam's shared house, feeling the shame of disturbing all four tenants at such a late hour, again. Aware of the emergency at hand and his lack of a better option, he rang the bell. Sam opened the door after a minute and, dreary-eyed, stared at Daniel's exhausted and terrified demeanor. "Dan, is everything okay?" "I'm really sorry to turn up again like this, but I had nowhere else to go. I had to get out of that house." "Well, come in. You must be frozen." He was right. Despite the run warming his body, the short time he waited at the door was enough for his core temperature to plummet. Combined with the residual fear of what he had seen in the living room, he was shaking. He walked inside and thanked Sam, but couldn't handle talking, nor did he want to keep Sam from his sleep on a weekday. "Can we speak about it tomorrow?" Dan asked. "Of course, man. Get some rest." Sam showed him to the living room and found a blanket and pillow to turn the sofa into a makeshift bed for the night. "Better than last time, I hope. I'm getting up at about 8 a.m. and then heading out at about 10. Let's talk before I head off, yeah?" "Thank you, Sam. Don't mention it." During the night, Daniel had some of the most intense dreams yet. In some, he was in hand-to-hand combat with Laith, desperately trying to save his own life from the maniac's fury. In another, Laith was pulling out all the tricks to get inside Daniel's head, leaving him confused and dazed from the contradictory information. He then dreamt he was in Gibraltar, enjoying a beach holiday, when Laith suddenly emerges out of the sea, walking towards him, holding the axe. The axe. That's what had done it, back at the house. Laying there in the middle of the living room floor, neatly arranged next to a long rope, a black balaclava, and a hunting knife. Like the kill tools of the blood-spattered psychopath Dexter from TV. The sight of that arrangement told Daniel everything he needed to know about Laith's real plans for the night. "What the fuck?" Sam stared in disbelief when he told him about it the next morning. "That is fucking scary, dude. No fucking wonder you got freaked out. I would have too. That's creepy." "I know, mate. I'm trying to figure it out. Did I just escape being murdered? Like, for real this time?" "It sounds like you might have. Fuck, man. Do you really think he was gonna try and kill you? Why did he leave that stuff like that?" Sam was distraught. "Maybe to freak me out, one last mindfuck. Or maybe he wanted quick access to his tools. On his last night in the country, and his last chance to settle whatever wrong he thinks needs to be righted. Either way, I did the right thing getting out of there, right? This is like a movie. Like some horror film where the hero narrowly escapes certain death. I can't believe this shit is actually happening." "I guess this kind of stuff is in movies for a reason. It sometimes happens. I just never thought I'd be stuck in the middle of it. And I am definitely no hero." Sam took a drink of his coffee. "Do you think he's still in the house?" "I have no idea." He stood and started pacing. "But I'm going to call someone from work, Jose, and ask him to come with me to the house this afternoon. He's a big guy, so Lade's not going to want to fuck with me while Jose has my back. If the house is even still there, fuck, he could have burned the thing to the ground by now." "Not helping, Sam." He had enough to worry about without imagining all of his possessions burnt to a crisp. Though, in a funny sort of way, he secretly felt okay with that idea, provided that the psycho was gone and never coming back. If he's burned the house down, there's no way he would show his face again, and no way he could think he'll work his way back into my favor ever again. I mean, why bother trying at that point, right? No, whatever the situation was, there was no going back. By leaving so suddenly and not coming back, he'd shown Lathe that even after the whole evening of pleasantries and supposed honesty, there was no friendship left to flog for money or entertainment. The game was up. Either he was gone and Daniel would probably never hear from him again, or he was still there and the next few days and weeks would be hell, as Daniel desperately tried to get him forcefully removed from the house, perhaps by filing for a restraining order or calling the police and telling them that it threatened his life. He hoped for the former. Sam wished him luck and told him he could call at any time for support if he needed it, and then left the house to go to university. Daniel stayed for a few more hours in Sam's house, frantically searching the web for what to do in different emergency situations, just in case. Jose was a tall and muscular young man who worked in the same restaurant as Daniel. Spanish-born and with an accent to match, he was a biology student that Daniel had gone rock climbing with a few times. They enjoyed discussing science and technology together, enough for them to strike up a semi-friendship during the after-work drinks. Once, Jose tried to convince Daniel that he was much more intelligent than he sounded, that his limited English made him sound quite simple, but that in Spanish he was much more impressive. It seemed to be the case, and he never had much trouble understanding what Daniel would tell him about how gravity works or about what the world is like at a quantum level. Recently, though, Daniel had been talking a lot about psychology and the relationship between people and psychopaths, as well as the politics of power, all of which seemed to go over poor Jose's head. Daniel read this as the same naivety that he had had himself before this whole ordeal began. Thankfully, it was Jose's day off. He picked up the phone after a couple of rings and agreed to escort Daniel to the house and offer his fists if things got hairy. They met near the restaurant and started the 30-minute walk to the house. So if he's still there, I need you to stand by me when I tell him that he has to leave the house, Daniel requested as he laid out the plan. If he shouts, stay calm, don't let him get into your head, and don't get emotional. He had been planning this day for a long time. Okay, Jose nodded. If he comes at us with a knife or an axe, we run and we call the police. It is not worth the risk to try and fight him. But if he shows his cards like that, then we have 2 witnesses to him attempting murder, so we can call the police straight away. Okay. And if it looks like he's not there, you stay near the front door, holding it open, just in case we have to escape, and I'll search the house room by room. Okay. Does this all make sense? Do you have any ideas on what we might have to do? It makes sense for me, Jose shrugged. They arrived at the house, and Daniel took a few minutes to study the building from the outside. Peering over the fence at the side of the garden, he could see into the conservatory and saw no signs of movement. He watched the window of Lade's bedroom and saw nothing. All looked quiet and still. Walking to the front door in silence, Daniel pulled out his key and slowly put it in the lock before making eye contact with Jose and nodding that they were both ready for the breach. Lathe, Daniel called out as they entered the house. Lathe, are you still here? No reply. As rehearsed, Jose stood holding the front door open, brandishing the baseball bat he had thought to bring along. Daniel checked the ground floor first, clearing the kitchen and conservatory, as well as the utility room under the stairs. The axe and accompaniments were still in the middle of the living room floor, which Jose was staring at while Daniel headed upstairs. He called out Lathe's name once more as he reached the top of the stairs. Lathe! With a firm hand, he pushed open the door to Lathe's room. It looked exactly the same as when he'd left last night, messy, dirty, and cold. The cat was lying on the bed and looked up at Daniel as he checked behind the door and under the bed. Then he checked his own room, then the bathroom. We're clear, he called down to Jose. He's not here. Jose closed the front door and came up the stairs to join him. Look, Daniel pointed at the toilet. That looks like vomit, right? Yes. Daniel flushed the lumpy red bile away and went back to Lathe's room. The liter bottle of whiskey, which had been about half full when he last saw it, was now smashed against the wall, but the carpet was not wet, nor did it smell of whiskey. Looks like he drunk himself into a stupor. "What is stupor?" Jose asked, reminding Daniel to avoid using overly complicated language. "When you're really drunk and do stupid things." He opened the drawers in Lade's room to find them still full of clothes, the black plain t-shirts and cheap jeans that was Lade's wardrobe. "It doesn't look like the room of a man who's just moved to Gibraltar." "It looks like he left in a hurry," Jose contributed. As they went downstairs, Daniel asked himself if this was it, his moment of glory. The lying, manipulative wretch of a man was nowhere to be found. Is he really gone? The level of honesty that Lath had brought to the table the night before further encouraged this sense of relief. Maybe, just maybe, he had told the truth about Gibraltar too. Daniel knew that it had been the right thing to do getting out of the house, and shared his thoughts with Jose. Things would have gone downhill very fast. If I hadn't played along with whatever games he was planning, it looks like I pissed him off by leaving when I did, enough at least to finish the whiskey and throw it against the wall and vomit. When they reached the living room, Daniel took a photo of the killing tools laying on the floor. He didn't know why exactly, maybe as evidence to show the police one day in case he ever comes back, maybe just to show people the proof that he had been living with a psychopath when they inevitably doubted him. As he picked up the items and piled them in the corner of the room, Jose didn't know whether to laugh or sympathize at the sight of the deadly weapons. In the end, he just patted Daniel on the back and said, "I think you are safe now, no?" Daniel caught sight of Lath's set of keys on the windowsill and picked them up. "I think so." Knowing Lath as well as he did by now, there was a good chance that he had made copies of those keys. After leaving his keys in goodwill, Daniel would become complacent and open himself up to a home invasion later down the line. He promptly went to a DIY store to pick up a new door lock. He bought, returned, brackets, as it was too big for the stupid door, close brackets, bought again and installed the lock that morning. If the psycho does come back, Daniel thought, at least his cloned key wouldn't work, leaving the house an impenetrable fortress of relative safety for as long as it took to call the police. He had no way of knowing where Lath was. He might have gone to his brother's flat, a hotel, or to the house of one of the poor fools at the bar that he worked at. Wherever he was, he knew where the house was and that Daniel would be living there for another few months. Even if he was in Gibraltar, if his story was true, he might abandon that ship if things didn't go to plan, then default to his old favorite source of get-out-of-jail cards, Daniel. Vigilance was required. It started with changing the locks and extended to checking the area thoroughly. Every time he got back to the house, he'd look for shady figures or unknown vehicles. He wasn't being paranoid, just cautious. Daniel spent the next few days packing up all of Lath's belongings. His clothes went into a bag for donation, a few boxes of personal items were given to his brother, and his sheets were thrown out. Aside from the cheap quality and mess of the room, a stranger would have no sense that the man who'd lived there for the last 6 months was actually a psychopath. It seemed normal enough. As Daniel moved the chest of drawers with the intent of bringing them into the now barren living room, he found a small item. Intentionally hidden behind the drawers, wrapped in toilet paper and carefully tied off in a bow with thin red ribbon, looped neatly around it like a Christmas gift. He stared at it for a few moments, trying to figure out what it might be. He untied the bow, then gently unraveled the toilet paper. Out of the wrap, a razor blade appeared, clearly used. The edge blunt, the surface discolored, grubby. Daniel thought of Dexter again, the fictional psychopathic forensic science expert of the same name who murders criminals to satisfy his dark passenger within. Dexter would take a drop of blood from each victim and keep it in a box of slides, a morbid trophy of his murderous conquests. He looked at the little red ribbon and considered how carefully folded the tissue paper had been, artfully wrapped around this tiny, sharp object. Is this a trophy? Was this used to hurt someone? Daniel had never seen dried blood, but what stained the blade looked like what he imagined dried blood would look like. A rusty, copper-like color of uneven gradient. If I ever need to gain police support against Lath, this could come in very handy. He wrapped it up again, then put it in an old shoebox at the foot of the wardrobe for safekeeping. After all the activity of clearing out the room, then taking the opportunity to reorganize the rest of the house, Daniel lay back in his ginger throne, now in the living room. He lit a cigarette because, fuck it, I paid so much for this damn house, I'm gonna have a damn smoke wherever I like, and poured a large glass of single malt scotch that he'd bought on the way back from buying the log the second time. He sat in the silence, staring at the front door. After all the preparations and physical strength training, he was disappointed that the fight of his life he felt was so sure to be coming had not materialized. He'd felt like such a coward for being so fearful of the man. At least a fight would have given him a chance to feel heroic. Not knowing if he was hoping the door would stay silently shut, or if he yearned for it to be slammed open by a knife-wielding lathe ready to bring a climactic finale to the horror show. He waited. Thank you very much for listening. We are rapidly approaching the halfway point of the novel. I hope you've been enjoying it. I hope you've been resonating with it. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Much love. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. And I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.